The sermons on this website were recorded on weekdays with an attempt to simulate the original sermons. They were not recorded, God forbid, on Shabbos or Jewish holidays. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So I mentioned last night that over Pesach, Miriam and I were looking to get bagels. And what I meant by that was not the way Bruce and family accomplished this, by going to a resort in San Diego, gorgeous weather, and stay at this resort in which they serve them gourmet meals, and they try to make anything they could out of potato starch, including pizza, bagels, French toast, pancakes. You know, you eat at these places over Pesach and you don't know that it's Pesach. It reminds me of the show Chopped, that would have these chefs create different dishes out of many different ingredients, but it would be a Pesach. The Pesach Chopped would be making everything out of potato starch. And there was even an article, an advertisement, a full-page advertisement taken out in the New York Times, I think it was, by the Imbal Hotel with a picture of a bagel and lox sandwich that was kosher Pesach, advertising the fact that you could have a bagels and lox cream cheese sandwich that's completely 100% kosher Pesach at their hotel over Pesach. Anyway, that's not the bagel I was referring to. It's because Miriam and I spent the first 2 days of Pesach and Shabbat Chol Hamoed in Philadelphia. I would say working our tails off while Bruce was funning and having fun in the sun. And we needed to unwind a little bit. So I mentioned last night how in yeshiva we used to call a 12-hour sleep a bagel because it's around the clock. Get it? Around the clock. So we were attempting to sleep as much as possible. I think we almost achieved that, but we definitely got a lot of well-deserved rest over the last couple of days of Pesach at Miriam's family's house. And the reason I mentioned this yesterday is because whenever we speak about Parashat Kedoshim, I try to bring up bagels, because it is a Jewish custom in general, not just on Pesach, which is a newer custom, but it's a Jewish custom to eat bagels. And I always say that this is to the merit of the Jewish people, because they want to be holy, as a bagel has a hole, so they want to be holy. And the reason I say this is meritorious is because it's very difficult to explain exactly what holiness is, to put your finger on it. So we want to make sure that we accomplish this, so at least we can do it by eating these holy bagels. At least do something. But the joke is really a serious thing, because to try to understand holiness, which is an essential concept in Judaism, is not simple. And we really have to work hard, as we do for many things in Torah, to try to figure out what exactly the Torah means when it says holiness. Does it mean just spirituality? It needs further explanation. And if you look at this week's Parashat, you see that there's many different examples of holiness, and it's not clear exactly how all these examples fit under the banner of holiness. So one of the things I always point out, and I've pointed out in the past, is that you have to look at the root of the word that you're speaking about and find other examples of the use of this word to understand what the word means. And one example that I always point out is that the word for marriage, one of the main words we use for marriage, and the way we actually get married, is through a procedure that we call Kedoshim. Kedoshim means, betrothal, which is the main stage of getting married. And what exactly does the word Kedoshim mean? We say Harayat Mekudeshli. The man says to his future wife that you are betrothed to me. What does the word Kedoshim or Mekudeshet mean? So if you look, we always brought this Tosos in Daf Beis Amid Beis, which is something, if Alex remembers, in the Tuesday night Talmud, we spoke about this topic in this Tosos. So Tosos explains that when we say Harayat Mekudeshet Li, we mean Miyuchedet Li. Miyuchedet Li means that we're saying to this woman who's going to be our wife, we say, you are special to me. In other words, what the word Kedoshim means is to create a special and unique relationship between two individuals. And therefore the word Kedusha means somewhat, one way or another, it means a special and unique relationship between two parties. And therefore when God says to the Jewish people, Kedoshim to you, Ki Kadosh Ani, we always ask, what does it mean? Be holy because I am holy. I mean, of course God is holy. Especially if we explain holiness as to mean spirituality, I mean, the source of spirituality is God. So how can God tell us, since I am holy, you should be holy? It's like saying, Babe Ruth saying, since I can hit home runs, you should hit home runs. I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Of course Babe Ruth hits home runs. That doesn't mean I can hit home runs. So because God's holy, therefore I should be holy. So we had different explanations of this in the past, but I think the simple explanation is, and I think is a very beautiful explanation, what the Torah is trying to tell us, is that Kedoshim to you is saying to the Jewish people, Ki Kadosh Ani, since I am holy, which means since I am already there in terms of our relationship, I'm committed to having a meaningful, loving relationship with the Jewish people. That is expressed in the fact that I say that I am holy, so therefore Kedoshim to you. What I ask is that the Jewish people get there as well, get to the point where they are also committed to a meaningful, loving relationship with me. So when God asks us to be holy, He's asking us, catch up to me. I'm there. I'm here. I'm ready for you. I'm ready to have a relationship with you. And I'm asking you to also be holy. You also should commit to this loving relationship with me. And I think this explanation really makes sense if you look at the different examples at the end of the Parashat. We speak about the various rayot, the different illicit sexual relationships that we're not allowed to have. And I think this fits very well with this definition. Because anyone knows when I do a wedding, I always try to explain every single aspect of the wedding so that everyone knows what's going on. Because if you ever go to weddings, most of the Orthodox weddings you go to, you hear some mumbling on the chuppah here, boo, and then 5 minutes later you hear a little laughing, and you have no idea what's going on. And then 5 minutes later you say Mazel Tov, like they're married. Nothing. You don't know what happened. So I try to explain every aspect. So one of the things that I explain is when we make the bracha of the Kiddushin, the Birchat Kiddushin, the bracha on the mitzvah of Kiddushin, we mention She'asur lanu es ha'arayot, that God prohibited us from having illicit sexual relationships. And I was translating this bracha for under the chuppah. The last thing I wanted to say was, and God has prohibited us from having illicit sexual relationships under the chuppah. I mean, that just doesn't sound great. It doesn't make everyone have a warm, fuzzy feeling under the chuppah. So the way I do translate it, which I think is completely accurate and also completely brilliant, if I must say so myself, is that I say that God guided us away from detrimental relationships. And that's what it is. The illicit sexual relationships, arayot, things that God tells us we're not allowed to have, are detrimental relationships because they're relationships that are not meant for us. And then we say that God then guided us towards meaningful relationships through marriage. That the person we marry is a meaningful relationship, and therefore arayot, the purpose of arayot, which is a negative relationship we're not supposed to have, is not just to prohibit us from certain relationships, but it's to guide us and focus us on those relationships in which that are meaningful to us as individuals. And that's why it's called Kedusha. And that's why illicit relationships is called Kedusha. Avoiding those illicit relationships. As Rashi says on the word Kedushin, on the word Kedusha, Kedoshim to you. Because if we avoid those relationships we're not supposed to have, it teaches us which relationships we are to focus on, and thereby achieving those meaningful relationships which we call holy, we call Kadosh. And I think there are also other aspects, all the different examples that we find in our parsha are under this banner as well. They teach us integrity. They teach us to be integral in terms of our relationships, and to be sincere, and to be honest, and to be true. And one example I think we find is when the Torah tells us, the famous verse that says, love your neighbor, love your friend as yourself. So there's a famous dictum that's found in the Medrash that Rabbi Akiva says, who, Rabbi Akiva was, of course, the famed sage of the Talmud and of the Mishnah. And Rabbi Akiva says, and this is a song that they sing, all the kids sing, that loving your neighbor as yourself is the greatest principle in the whole Torah. But one thing that bothers me about this song, when everyone makes a big deal about this, is the fact that, number one, there's actually three things that bother me. Number one is that if you look at the source, you see that there are different opinions as to what the greatest principle in the Torah is. And the halacha, it says, is not like Rabbi Akiva. So when we go around singing, Rabbi Akiva says that this is the greatest principle in the whole Torah, it's not really true. So that's number one problem. The second problem is that the Gemara, Masechus Shabbos, Daf Amud Aleph, tells us, and this is according to Rashi, which is also clarified by the Maharsha over there, is that when we say, love your neighbor as yourself, what do we mean by your neighbor, Re'acha, your friend, as yourself? So Rashi seems to tell us that not only does it mean your friend, but it also means God. So when we go around sing Kumbaya, you should love your friend, love everybody, love people, it's actually referring also to loving God, which is, I think, many people who sing this song, the last thing they had on their mind was that they're singing about loving God. So that's the second issue I have. The third issue, which I think is even more fundamental, is the word kamocha. Love your neighbor, love your friend as yourself, which implies, according to Sfas Emes and many other commentators, that kamocha means that you cannot love other people, you cannot love God, unless you first love yourself. And therefore, if I use this verse to teach me to love other people, I am foregoing the required prerequisite to loving other people, which is loving myself. And if I don't love myself, I don't appreciate myself, I don't have a true love of who I am as a person and my essence and of myself, then I cannot love others, I cannot love God, and I cannot love my friends. And that's an amazing, powerful concept. And we find this, I think, in other aspects of the Parashat leading up to this verse. If you look earlier, for example, there's a very, very powerful verse that says, Lo sikal cheresh, right before this, a couple of verses earlier. One should not curse a deaf person. And lifnei ivelo titei michshol. And one should not put a stumbling block before a blind person. V'yareisem elhecha ani Hashem. You should fear God, for I am God. Right? So, lo sikal cheresh obviously doesn't just mean literally one should not curse a deaf person. Rashi says, Ein li ela cheresh minan l'rabas kol adam. That how do I know that I'm supposed to include all people in this prohibition? That in other words, it's not literal, it's figurative as well. And that's what the verse means also when we say you should not put a stumbling block for a blind person. So Rashi says, Lo titin eitzah she'eino geras lo, you should not give bad advice to somebody, is also under this prohibition. Meaning, it's not just literally don't put a stumbling block, you should also figuratively, whatever it means, you shouldn't lead someone along the wrong path when you know it's the wrong path. You shouldn't give someone bad advice when you know it's bad advice. That's also called putting a stumbling block for other people. So, the issue I have is that the verse seems to say, and this is the way I've always heard it explained, is that God is saying, if you curse a deaf person, literally or figuratively, or put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, literally or figuratively, you have to fear God, because they might not know what you're doing, but I know what you're doing, and therefore, fear God, be afraid, be very afraid of God, for I am Hashem, I am God, right? And this is usually interpreted as saying God is going to get you. He's there with a lightning bolt. He's you do this to a deaf or blind person, you're dead. Now, the reason why I think this is wrong is because, number one, God doesn't have a problem. He says in many places that you're dead. I'm gonna get you. But he doesn't say that here. The other thing is that when it says Ani Hashem, I am God, it's not just talking about God. It's saying Yud Kei Vav Kei. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei refers to God who is a loving God. So why in the world would we refer to a loving God if we're telling people to be very afraid because God's going to get you if you do these prohibited acts? And also, why say Elohecha, which sounds like your God, which is a more personal God? Why say it that way? So I think what it's saying is something so profound. It's saying you should not curse a deaf person, literally or figuratively, or put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, literally or figuratively. You know why? Not because God's going to get you, but because the issue is that you are going to, if you live a life like this, where this is what you do, and you're used to doing this, 20 years down the road, you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to hate yourself. You're going to look at yourself and say, you're not a good person. You do this to blind people and deaf people. That's not good. You're going to hate yourself. And if you hate yourself, you're not going to be able to relate to God. And that's why the verse continues. V'yaresa malacha. V'yaresa doesn't just mean fear. The root of the word comes from fear. Yirah comes from the word re'iyah, which means to see. So therefore, the word doesn't mean just be afraid. It means be aware. Be very aware. Not just be afraid, be very afraid. But be aware. Be aware that what? Elohecha. That I am your God. Meaning I'm your God. I have a personal relation with you. And right, K'nei Hashem, I am the God who loves you and cares about you and wants to have a relation with you. But if you're going to be a jerk, if you're going to live a life that's committed to being a jerk, we're never going to be able to have a relationship together. You know why? Because you're never going to be able to live with yourself. You're not going to love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, you're never going to be able to get into any kind of relationship with anybody, including with me, even though I'm committed, even though I'm committed to having a relationship with you. So I think that the Torah is telling us something very, very profound over here about the inability for someone who doesn't love themselves to get into any kind of relationship, whether with God or with other people. And I think that this concept relates very much to Yom HaShoah, which we are commemorating in a couple of days, which many, many years connects to Parashat Kedoshim because of this. And I think the reason why this is very much connected, besides like we mentioned in the past, that the concept of Kedoshim is very much connected to the Holocaust. The people in the Holocaust died at Kedush Hashem and sanctifying the holiness of God's name. But it also is on another level. My Rosh Hashiva, Yaakov Weinberg, used to say that it's vitally important for us to know that Yom HaShoah warrants its own holiday. That there's no question that a commemorative day needs to happen when it comes to Yom HaShoah. He didn't agree with the day that was chosen for different reasons, but there has to be, because it is a day that changed Jewish history. It is such a monumental event that we can't just ignore it. And that's why it's a good thing that there's so many commemorative places to remember the memory of the 6 million Jews who passed away, who perished in the Holocaust. And we have to remember the messages and remember those who died and recount this terrible, terrible event. However, there is an issue that always bothered me about the Holocaust museums and the Holocaust memorials, and that is the message that it sends to the next generation is a very negative one about Torah and Judaism. And the fact that people spend so much money and commit so many resources to the Holocaust is something that's not great. Because on one hand, we do have to remember, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we also have to give money towards education. That the education of the next generation is vitally important. And if you focus on the Holocaust and the negative messages about Torah and Judaism that it portrays on the surface, it really doesn't enable the next generation to look at Torah and Judaism. For those who are not very well educated in Torah and Judaism, they don't look at it in a positive way. They look at it as, if I'm Jewish, someone's going to eventually kill me. So, anti-Semitism is going to catch up with me. So I have to stay away from being Jewish. And that's very, very sad. And I think the message has to be, we have to figure out a way. How do I remember the Holocaust? How do I say never forget? How do I commemorate the memory of the 6 million and yet look at it in a positive light? And that is vitally important. We can never get away from this. We have to figure out a way to do it. And one of the ways I think that is the proper way to do it is to focus on the fact that we have been picked on, so to speak, and almost murdered for centuries, and yet we always came back. Jewish people are still around. It's an absolute miracle that 3 years after the Holocaust, the Jewish people established the state of Israel against all odds. It's a very inspiring story. It's something that enables us to focus on and to remember those who died, and yet spin it, if I could use such a word, but spin it in a way, it's not spinning it untruthfully, it's spinning it in a way that is truthfully inspiring. The most inspiring story in history. Our history is absolutely amazing, how resilient the Jewish people are. We always come back, no matter what. That is a very inspiring story, and it makes someone proud, very proud to be Jewish, and it also lets us remember those who passed away and gives them honor and respect. And I'll tell you, Miriam and I, generally speaking, I mentioned this last night, we very much enjoy watching movies together, or television shows together, and we usually have the same taste. But whenever we're, especially Miriam when she travels, so she, this last week she traveled for work. She went to Mexico, and she was on a plane, and she couldn't sleep, so she wants to watch a movie. So we have a deal, so to speak, between us, and we try to choose movies or television shows that the other would not want to watch. So even though we usually have the same taste, but when it comes to certain movies, like for instance, I really don't like romantic dramas or even many regular dramas. I just don't like them. It's not something. Depends on the drama. I enjoy many dramas like, but the ones that have a focus on the dialogue that's just not my style. It's not something I enjoy. So those are the ones Miriam tries to find and watch. And I try to watch the ones that are action-oriented with gore, or, she doesn't like that, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. One of the examples that she doesn't like boxing movies because of the blood. And I'm a big Rocky fan. When I was a kid growing up, I watched Rocky 1 to 4. I was a big Rocky. I love those movies. But there's one movie, because of the fact that Miriam doesn't like those kind of movies, one movie I never ended up seeing was Rocky 5 or Rocky 6. Now, Rocky 5 I don't want to see because it got really bad reviews, so I'm not interested. But Rocky 6, I always wanted to see Rocky 6, which they call Rocky Balboa. That's the name of the movie, Rocky Balboa, which is really Rocky 6. And I just never watched it. I put it out of my mind, but we just got Amazon Fire TV, and there was this documentary, whatever it was, on the Rocky over there, which sort of like piqued my curiosity when it was away. I figured, I couldn't sleep one night. I'm going to watch Rocky 6. So I watched Rocky 6 and I loved it. It was awesome. Great movie. And there's so many wonderful things about the Rocky series. It's a very inspiring story. And watching Rocky 6 really brought me back a lot of memories about Rocky in general. And the whole the original one and the ones that followed. And I saw as a kid. And like I said, the story is a very inspiring one. And not just because it's Philadelphia, but it's great that it's Philadelphia. The story happened in Philadelphia, but it's a message of inspiration because Rocky has the same message as the Jewish people, which is he's very resilient, always comes back, he's the underdog, and yet he's able to retain his selfhood, and he's able to come back and be successful. And there was a very poignant scene in Rocky 6, many great scenes, very poignant scene in Rocky 6 where he's speaking to his son. His son is very upset at him because he decides to take this bout as a 59-year-old boxer, and he's all over the news. And his son's really resentful because his son said to his father, look, my entire life I'm living in your shadow, and I'm trying to create my own life. And it's always a problem for me because of you. And now you decide to take this bout, and because of that, it's all over the news, and I can't get out of your shadow. I just can't do it. And it's really affecting me really negatively. And if you really loved me and cared about me, you wouldn't think just about yourself, how you need to fight this battle. You would think about the fact that you're having a tremendous impact, negative impact, on my life and me being able to become who I want to become. He's very upset, and I heard that. I said, whoa, Rocky's not going to fight this bout. He's going to, this is a really serious accusation his son is throwing at him, and this is his son, for crying out loud. He's got to do something about it. So Rocky instead came back to his son with an amazing point. It was very simple. It's such a simple point, but it's so powerful and it's so deep at the same time. And he really nails it. He basically tells his son, I love you more than anything in the world. And I consider it a privilege every single day to raise you and that you were part of my life. And you're an amazing person, a great kid, but you're dead wrong over here. He said, life is very difficult. Life throws things at you like you can never imagine. It knocks you down no matter what. No matter who you are, life is going to throw things at you. Life is going to hit you very hard, and you're going to get knocked down. And the question is, it's not how do I avoid that? It's not how I blame other people for my problems. It's I get hit, I get knocked down. How do I get up again? And the ones who are successful in life, he says, aren't the ones who complain. Aren't the ones that blame other people for their problems. They realize that no matter what, I'm going to have problems. And despite that, I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight back. And I'm going to get knocked down and get up again. It's not who doesn't get hit, who avoids the hits. It's the one who gets hit and then gets up and fights back. And that's the one who's successful. And he actually used that as an inspiration in his fight. But I think this is really an amazing message because it's telling you, how do I love myself? And how do I thereby get into meaningful relationships? It's by being resilient. It's realizing I'm going to get hit real hard. And the Jewish people were hit real hard. But we got back up again. And we fought back. And we were successful. And I think this is the message of holiness. This is the message of Kedusha. And the message we have to take with us throughout our lives and use it as the Jewish people as an inspiration. That we are going to get hit in life. It's going to be difficult. But if we want to maintain the Kedusha, the holiness in our life, and the relationships that mean a lot to us, we have to be able to get up and fight back and have that self-respect, have that love of self in order to maintain and to attain the beauty and the meaning of those relationships and attain that level of holiness. And if we're able to do that, God willing, after 120, we'll be able to, so to speak, look God in the eye and say, Yo God, I did it. Shabbat Shalom.